As A3N approaches Nocturnality, so does the first true mention of Azuma's long-lost older brother, Hajime. It's revealed in Act 4 that Azuma's family got into an accident, leaving him orphaned and alone for years until he joined Mankai Company. Now, that's pretty simple in itself, and they could have stopped there. They should have stopped there, but things get a little bit more complicated when it comes to his older brother. Because Hajime is coming to end, I think it's time again for everyone's least favorite game with no answers, no winners, and definitely only losers. Who the fuck is Yukishiro Hajime? I'm Emma November Alice, and I'll be your host for this evening. Before we get started, as always, a spoiler warning for A3 stories, in particular these ones. There might be some mentions from others, including some stories from Aichu as well, but these have the most. Also, for the ages, I'll be following what year it is, judging from how long it's been since Mankai's founding, in Acts 4 to 5. Technically, this causes some issues in itself because Acts 1 to 4 and 2nd and 3rd plays are all 1 year somehow, and so are Acts 5 to 8 and 5th and 6th and mixed plays, even though that makes no sense time-wise, but that's a whole different discussion. Maybe I should cover it again at some point, but Gekka and Yukishiro's come first. Anyway, moving on from how Liber doesn't know how to count, let's start from what we know. Introducing key Mankai members. Of course, we have Yukishiro Azuma. He's probably the most straightforward out of everyone here thanks to his lack of involvement with secret agent bullshit, and he doesn't even have a canon age. For our purposes today, we're gonna assume that he was born the same year as Sakyo, which is the youngest he can possibly be while still being older. When Azuma was a little kid, his family got into a car accident and never came home. His parents died and were buried at their family grave, but his brother's body was never recovered. He's been growing out his hair in the hopes of seeing his brother again ever since. Next, we have Utsuki Chikage, formerly known in the secret organization as April. He's one of August's kids and got picked up off the street when he was little. Now, he's the one who would know the most about what's going on with the organization since he's not dead, or recovering from amnesia, or otherwise compromised, which is hilarious considering he's known to make shit up and just constantly lie. Also because Liber seems to outright refuse to give us his point of view, like they're scared of giving him development or something. Who knows? Moving on. The last of the Mankai members is the arguable protagonist of Gekko's story arc, Mikage Hisoka, or December. He's August's other kid, and up to this point in the story, he's been slowly regaining his memories after losing them to August's medicine. But while he's remembering things, they're not necessarily correct. Take the epilogue to Moon and Rabbit, where Hisoka bought moon-shaped earrings for Chikage, mistakenly thinking that he was the one who used to wear them when it was in fact July. He says in Scarlet Mirror that this is the last time he'll need to sort his memories out, but I find that very hard to believe. Now we can finally get to our players. First off, Yukishiro Hajime himself. He's represented here by Kusanagi Shizuma, Azuma's character from Mystery, which I hate, but even A3N has cemented this by now. In Azuma's Mystery SR backstage, not only does he give a hint as to why he keeps his hair long, the English translation adds a mention of him having an older brother when the original didn't at all. So this man might be intended to give us our first glimpse at Azuma's brother, which makes me, for various reasons that I'll get to later. Hajime had just left high school when the accident happened, making him around 17 or 18. And according to Azuma's various descriptions of him, he was nice and kind and soft and did things at his own pace, just like Azuma and their mother, and was the one to encourage Azuma to grow his hair out in the first place. As previously mentioned, his body was never found, which is just soap opera language for he survived and he's just out there somewhere, which becomes more clear with the foreshadowing we get beaten over the head with in Nocturnality and Risky Game. Like, we get it. He's not dead, okay? Just show him to us already so I can stop using the sibling murderer for his face. Next up is August. He's pretty much Chikage and Hisoka's dad. He picked them up off the street, and July even refers to them as his children. Okay, July's probably doing that mockingly, but you get the idea. Presumably he's a little bit older than them, even though he looks very baby. He was also considered an important member of the organization before his death, which is probably why he was allowed to raise 2 kids in a secret organization, I guess. There is also the issue of August's voice, which I will get to later. Last, and very much least, we have July. Angry revenge man with long hair, pretty earrings, and sharp yellow eyes. He shows up in one damn story and we get so much and so little information at the same time. He and August seem kind of familiar with each other. He doesn't like Chikage and Chikage doesn't like him. He's 26. Allegedly. Did you guys know that? According to a profile in Drop, the most recent official art book, he's 26. This bitch is 26. Supposedly he's the traitor, and he's been built up as such for the past several stories. Although in his whole chapter of overdramatic villain monologue during Scarlet Mirror, he admits to leaking information that got August killed, but refuses to say that he's the traitor or that he even was the one who killed August. So basically, we don't really know a damn thing. Now, as usual, I'm just gonna go into detail for the outcomes where Hajime is either August or July. No other shit. If he's separate from them and he's dead, Libera is wasting their foreshadowing. Just let Hajime be dead then. Don't act like he might have lived through the accident and go, psych, he's just dead. What was this all for then? Nothing? To make us suffer? Jesus. If he's separate from them and he's alive, there's too many possibilities and they make my head hurt. So I'm not gonna go into like, Yukishiro Hajime is separate from August and July and he's the head of the organization even though he's like 40 right now. Or Yukishiro Hajime is in a coma and July is a separate person or a robot meant to behave as him. Or Yukishiro Hajime is a separate person from July and August, but for some reason they have his face and voice respectively, and he's the link between them like some godforsaken, accursed human wedding ring. No, none of that. Just the easy stuff. Honestly, I do like some of the other theories outside of the ones I usually talk about, but we just don't have the information to examine them closer, so I won't. God, just saying that probably means there's about to be a card with a backstage that'll break me again. I'm also not gonna claim I know what's going on, because the second I do that, like the last time, Libera is going to give us information that contradicts everything that's already been said so far. Because they like to spite specifically me. And only me. Like I'm in a Greek myth about some idiot who made fun of a god who's now about to smite their dumb ass. So, with those out of the way, let's do this. This time, I'm going to start with the one I think is less likely. July is Yukishiro Hajime. Now, if you see me on Twitter, it may surprise you to hear that this is the theory I think is less likely with how often I mention it, but look, I just think it's neat. There's still some problems with it, but I don't really want to discount the possibility entirely. After all, it's so easy to just look at July and Azuma and think, yeah, I got it. No questions, I understand. Especially because in Aichu, Libera's idol boy mobile game before A3, there's a similar long-lost sibling plot with Ava Armstrong and Babel. Baber? Baberu? Babel had never met his older brother and didn't even know he had one until his mother mentioned it, but recognized Ava immediately because their eyes are the same. A3 and Aichu have a few more similar plot lines, like this man, who looks pretty young for his age, picks up 2 kids and raises them as his own. They fight, but in the end they still love each other. And a missing prince is tracked down by his attendant, who realizes that this is in fact his new home and decides to join him. And most recently, a director who is shunned by a troupe that he created watches a performance centered around demons and realizes that he should let go of the past that's been haunting him for so long. So it wouldn't really be too surprising for the Yukishiras to follow the Armstrongs in this case. Aside from that, July also feels somewhat similar to Azuma. Long hair, likes conventionally girly stuff like dangly earrings, although he doesn't seem anything like how Azuma described his brother. But Risky Game, the story where July appears in person for the first time, is also where the possibility that Hajime might have lost his memory is mentioned for the first time. Hisoka says that Hajime might have survived the fall from the cliff like he did, and is living without his memories. To which Azuma says that his brother isn't as strong as Hisoka is. So, yeah. Risky Game, the play itself, kinda implies that Hisoka and Azuma have the same problem, but not quite the same source through their characters Liam and Norman. They both get tricked by Catherine, but while Liam has to deal with her directly, Norman gets involved through her sister. I don't know, it's kind of a stretch, but so is every other parallel in Risky Game, honestly. Now for the issues. Didn't you say earlier that July is 26? You're gonna believe that? He trained alongside August and laughed at his dumbass kids, and you're gonna tell me that you actually believe Liber when they tell you that July is the same age as... No. July is slightly younger than Chikage? Yeah, right. It's probably just a consequence of being an amnesiac. He's forgotten a huge chunk of years from his life and no one bothered to tell him he's actually like 40. Of a little more concern is the fact that in Scarlet Mirror, Chikage mentions offhandedly that this might not be July's actual face, to which July agrees? We can take this as being like, oh, that's not July's face because he's actually got white hair, but it seems kind of weird to put it that way. And until July gets his voice, presumably this December, alongside fully voiced Risky Game, we have to assume that Hisoka was mistaken during Act 5, giving his voice to August instead. I guess it is possible. Hisoka's memory has confused July's traits with those of his family before, so it could happen again. But judging from Scarlet Mirror, neither Hisoka nor Chikage seem that familiar with him. Chikage might know his voice that well, but as far as we know, Hisoka's heard him all of one time. So I'm not really sure how to explain this part, aside from the constant joke that Libra likes to pretend that they don't have the money to hire two separate voice actors. I did have a theory that the August that we know is actually based off Hajime before he became July. And so the two of them sounding alike is intentional on August's part, but it's still a lot of conjecture. At least it makes more sense than August and July swap faces though, right? On that note, now for August as Hajime. As I previously mentioned, they have the same voice actor. Here's some of August's lines from Act 5.
二人とも、ちゃんと日本語はマスターした?漢字とひらがなとカタカナの違いが難しいよね。名前はもう考えたの?そんなことだろうと思って、日本通の僕が二人にかっこいい名前を考えておいてあげたよ。
And here's Hajime's lines from Act 8 in Nocturnality.
お誕生日おめでとう。弟に渡すのはおかしいかもしれないけど、お前の髪は綺麗だから、お土産買ってくるから。行ってきます。さようなら、Azuma.
Same voice. There's not even that much of a difference between them. August is a little bit higher, Hajime is a little bit more floaty Yukishiro energy, but it's nothing drastic. But even without listening to the voice lines, it just makes sense. When I first read Act 5 in February, before Act 8 had even come out, I thought, hey, what if August is Azuma's long-lost older brother? It just fit. After all, he's pretty much exactly like how Azuma describes him. He's kind and gentle, he does whatever the hell he wants even when his own son is like, no dad, please stop that. He likes sweets just like Azuma does. He gave Hisoka and Chikage their fake names and wrote his wish in Risky Game in Japanese. Of course, when you get to Risky Game, we hit a snag because August looks nothing like Azuma. And like I said, Libra likes to reuse their plotlines. Recycle. Very eco-friendly. Even their eyes, which are the link for the Armstrongs, are entirely different. It's Scarlet Mirror that provides a possible solution to this, July kind of admitting that this might not be his face. Now, Ame, you say, why would August and July switch faces? Well, Hajime's face got messed up in the accident? Secret agent identity stuff? I really don't know. It's for Libra to explain and for me to complain about. But the reason that I think it's more likely that August is Hajime comes from something that happened on Hisoka's birthday in 2019. Chikage's line for him was incorrect. The voice line was just a reference to what they'd gone over in Scarlet Mirror, but the line of the text box had something else entirely. It reads, "We're probably the only people who would bring a cake with them while visiting a grave." It was later corrected, which is pretty suspicious. After all, a big part of Risky Game is Hisoka having to go to the cliff because he doesn't have a grave to visit, so why does he suddenly get one? Unless, it's the only grave that's mentioned in the very same story, that of the Yukishiros. Yet again, I don't really have a conclusion for you. I say that these are the most likely outcomes, but who knows? Anything could happen. The information we get is constantly changing and contradicting itself because of one thing that I know for sure. Liberant are fucking dumb. No, I don't just mean them not knowing how to count years or how to treat their gender non-conforming characters. I mean things like how we found out August gets a grave at some point maybe this year because only Chikage had the wrong line. How July is 26 even though he should be at least a little older than December and April. For God's sake, as I record this, we've just finished a racing event with Azuma as the SSR. Azuma, in a race car. Libra, are you fucking serious? And yet, somehow through all this, the only thing that's remained constant is that Hajime is probably not as nice as Azuma remembers him. I mentioned that the first hint at his existence is actually in mystery, and I don't know if it's a great idea to reveal Azuma has an older brother through his role as an older brother who murders his sister and is implied to have a less than proper relationship with her. You can say this gets fixed by Azuma playing a nice helpful version of Philippe de Chagny in Kaijin F, but in Act 8 you also get Hajime's voiced line being basically, "Sorry if it's weird to give a hairpin to my brother because he has pretty hair." Like, your brother is 10. Don't tell him it's weird for him to be pretty. What's wrong with you? Liberant takes the time to make this whole dumbass secret agent long-lost sibling amnesia plotline and puts more effort into them than the rest of the cast, but they can't even do it right. So, really, no matter what happens, I'm just here for the train wreck. And when I'm right, eventually, when I'm right, you'll see. You'll all see. Thank you for listening to whatever the hell this is. I always do theories and stuff like this for A3, And this is the first time I actually made a video about it because I said I would do it as a joke, and then I actually did it! I have other ones if anybody wants me to do those. I brought up some of the topics in this, and yeah, if you want more, let me know, I guess. Thanks.